In 1970, Venezuela was richer than Spain. Today, its economy is smaller than it was 30 years ago. Not adjusted for inflation, actually smaller. In just 15 years, Venezuela lost over 3/4 of its economy, destroyed its currency, and forced 1/4 of its population to flee. This didn't happen because of war or sanctions. It happened because of choices. This is how a rich country collapsed in plain sight. This is Venezuela today. But this same country once lived a completely different reality. Not centuries ago, not in ancient history. Within a single lifetime, Venezuela went from one of the richest nations on earth to one of the poorest. From a country that attracted immigrants to a country that exports refugees. This is not a story about bad luck. It is a story about how wealth can destroy discipline and how a nation can forget how prosperity is actually created. In the middle of the 20th century, Venezuela was a miracle. By the 1950s, it ranked among the wealthiest countries in the world per person. Its currency was strong. Its cities were modern. Caracas sparkled with highways, skyscrapers, and imported cars. While much of Europe was still recovering from war, Venezuelans vacationed abroad. Immigrants arrived from Spain, Italy, Portugal, and across Latin America, chasing opportunity. The reason was simple: oil. Beneath Venezuelan soil lay oceans of it, some of the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. And when oil money began flowing, it changed everything. Too quickly. Oil did not just bring money, it brought ease. The government no longer needed to tax citizens heavily. The state could fund itself by selling oil to the world. Roads were built. Universities expanded. Subsidies multiplied. At first, this looked like success, but something subtle began to break. When oil dollars poured into the economy, Venezuela's currency grew stronger. Imported goods became cheap. Local factories became expensive. Why manufacture shoes at home when you could import them cheaper from abroad? Why invest in farms when oil paid faster, easier, and bigger? Slowly, quietly, Venezuela stopped producing. Economists call this the resource curse. When one resource dominates everything, other skills fade. Venezuela still consumed, but it no longer practiced producing. Factories closed. Farms declined. Entrepreneurs chased government contracts instead of innovation. By the 1980s, a country with fertile land was importing most of its food. Oil had not made Venezuela strong. It had made it dependent, and dependence feels harmless until conditions change. In the 1980s, oil prices fell. Suddenly, the money slowed, but the spending did not. The state had built expectations it could no longer afford. Subsidies became burdens. Debt expanded. In 1989, the government tried to reverse course, cutting subsidies, raising prices, removing controls. The shock was immediate. Transportation costs surged. Food prices jumped. Anger exploded. Caracas erupted into riots known as the Caracazo. Stores burned. The army was deployed. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, were killed. For many Venezuelans, this moment shattered trust in markets, reform, and institutions. And when trust collapses, populism finds fertile ground. Into this anger stepped Hugo Chavez. He spoke differently. He blamed elites, foreign powers, and corruption. He promised dignity, justice, and a new system. Most importantly, he promised to use oil wealth for the people. In 1998, Venezuelans elected him in a landslide, and at first it worked. Oil prices rose, money returned, social programs expanded, healthcare reached poor neighborhoods, education improved, poverty fell. For millions, Chavez felt like redemption, but the foundation beneath the success was already cracking. Chavez did not just spend oil money, he restructured power, businesses were nationalized, price controls were imposed, currency exchange was tightly controlled. The most critical move came at the heart of the system, the state oil company. When experienced managers resisted political control, they were fired, tens of thousands at once. Engineers were replaced with loyalists. Expertise was sacrificed for obedience. Oil production began to fall. Maintenance was delayed. Investment dried up. The engine that funded everything started to fail. Yet spending continued. When money ran short, the government chose the easiest option. It printed more. Price controls forced companies to sell at a loss. Factories shut down. Imports depended on government-approved dollars. A black market exploded. Those with connections got cheap dollars. Everyone else got empty shelves. Corruption became systemic, not because people were evil, but because the system rewarded manipulation instead of productivity. Then oil prices collapsed again. This time, there was nothing left to cushion the fall. After Chavez's death, his successor inherited a broken machine. Instead of changing course, the government pushed harder. More money printing, more controls, more blame. The result was hyperinflation. Prices doubled in weeks, then days, then hours. Savings vanished. Salaries became meaningless. Cash turned into paper. Hospitals ran out of medicine. Diseases returned. Malnutrition spread. People began leaving, quietly at first, then in waves. Teachers, doctors, engineers, families. Over 7 million Venezuelans fled. One of the largest migrations in modern history. Oil production collapsed to a fraction of its former level. Blackouts became routine. Water systems failed. The economy shrank by more than 3/4. A nation that once attracted the world now struggles to keep its own citizens alive. In recent years, some controls have been loosened. The economy has stabilized slightly, but stabilization is not recovery. Recovery requires rebuilding trust, institutions, and skills. Things that take decades, not oil booms. Venezuela did not collapse because it lacked resources. It collapsed because it forgot how prosperity is created. Wealth is not money. Wealth is production, skills, institutions, discipline. Oil bought time, but time was wasted. And when reality returned, there was nothing left to stand on. Venezuela's story is not unique. It is a warning, because any nation, rich or poor, can follow the same path if it mistakes income for productivity, power for competence, and spending for progress. Prosperity is fragile, and once lost, it is painfully slow to rebuild.